In today's show, we're going to cover PowerApps tips and tricks. It turns out I have a whole bag of little things I've wanted to show you guys forever. I sneak into videos every now and then, but today we're just going to make one video full of nothing but a bunch of little things. So, should be fun, should be quick. But first, here's our intro. Hi, my name is Shane Young with PowerApps 911. Those guys. And today's show is all about PowerApps tips and tricks. There's just a whole bunch of little stuff I've always wanted to share with you guys, right? So we're going to hide the nav bar, we're going to set a record, we're going to talk about the different experimental components and kind of what they mean, documentation screens, just a whole bunch of little stuff. A spinner, oh yeah, I like the spinner one. So just a bunch of little things. I don't know, right? Just kind of see where we go. I can also tell you guys that this all came from Twitter. So I threw out a conversation on Twitter, a couple hundred people responded and said, hey, here's our idea, here's our idea. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of use some of their stuff coupled in there. I'll put a link to the original Twitter post down below. So that way, if you guys are interested in kind of, all the ideas, because they have a lot more. There's a lot more stuff out there than I covered. That's great. If you're one of the people that contributed, thank you. If I use your idea and I don't credit you correctly, I'm sorry. If I mispronounce your name, I'm sorry. All the standard disclaimers. The good news is a link to the Twitter post, so history is on your side. You will be proven right if you say, I got it wrong. So anyway, let's jump over here. Let's build ourselves a little app and just talk about some things along the way. So the first thing I'm going to do over here is I'm going to say insert a gallery and vertical. This is not new, but we know we need a data source in order to kind of play with some of this stuff. So I'm going to search for SharePoint. This is the new select a data source. If you're not seeing this, this is because you're an old app that doesn't have this functionality turned on. So just a heads up there. But so I'm going to grab good old faithful our employees list. Boop. All right. So now we got a list in here. So at least this way we're able to do it, right? And this has nothing to do with SharePoint. I just use SharePoint. It's easy. We'll kind of pull this down here. And so boom. Okay. So the first thing I've been doing lately when building apps is I'm using components more and more, right? And so I'm coming over here. I'm saying File, Advanced Settings, and I am turning on components way down here. They are still an experimental feature, but that's okay because I still like them. And I covered how to build components in a previous video. So if you haven't seen that one, go check it out. But now that I turned them on, one of the things I can do is come over here and say, hey, I want to import a component. And because you guys, once again, we're not going to build them again. And look, these are the apps that are currently using them. So I can just grab them straight out of here, or I could upload a file. I thought this was a nice addition they gave us. So in the deep linking video, I had a component I really liked. So we turn that on. And so then boom, there's our components loaded. This was a header one. There's an error. And what it is the image that I used is not included. That's fair. So I'll add an image file. We'll jump in here to my logos folder. We'll just search for 300. Boop. There we go. Second time's charm. And so then there's the image. Okay, boom. So now we have our component in here. And so then the great thing about this, it makes it really easy to build my app, right? So then now, okay, I want to add that header component in here. And then the way that I've been working on these things, I keep playing with them. A lot of people are doing a lot of like really cool, neat features. I'm trying to make core functionality with mine first. And so for example, my header bar here, you can see there's a back button. I'm on the home screen. I don't want the back button. That's fair. So I can go here. Oh, look, I set the visible property for that into a variable. There you go. And then up here at the top for the text, I think that is header text. And so then typically here, what I was doing something like this. It's like, hey, welcome screen. But then someone gave me an idea that I actually didn't know this one. And what we can do here is we can say, and so what it is, it's app.activeScreen.name. Who knew this was a thing? And so you can see my screen is currently named screen 1. So I'll get rid of this whole thing. I'll just say, hey, just show them app active name screen 1. And so then if I go over here to my screen and give it a real name like welcome screen, which is always nice to do, then my lovely little component should, I'm guessing in a second when I come back to it, will refresh and realize that the name has changed. But so then I can do a second screen, right? So the second screen here, because we'll need a second screen in our app here. We'll call this edit screen like that. And then I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to throw my component back in here. There's my header. And so then notice here, this time I do want to show back. I have a destination screen set for that. I'm going to say, hey, I want your destination to be welcome screen. Thank you. And then his header text. Why is it a he? Maybe it's a she. Who knows? And then we'll just do our whole app.activescreen.name again. And then I bet if we go back over here, there you go. So boom, right? Components, use them early, use them awesome. And thank you to, who gave me that one? Michael gave me that one. Michael had about 12 different hints. So when you're reading the Twitter thread, shout out to him. He did a good job. Okay, so that was that. Now, I went over here and I said, hey, we've got this whole, you know what? First off, big mistake that I made, Reza pointed this one out, right, is I keep forgetting that you've got to save your app. PowerApps has autosave. It runs every 2 minutes, but not until you do the first save. So we're going to do, what is this? Tips and tricks app. So look, you give it a name, you go down here, you hit save. And so now autosave will happen every 2 minutes. I still to this day forget. I lost about 5 hours of work 2 weeks ago, because I forgot to save my app. So please, the moment you create your app, save it. So the next up over here under settings, advanced settings. So I don't want to go through all of these, but I just want to remind you guys a couple things, right? One is you should always kind of peek over here once a week, once every other week, on a regular basis, because there's really important things. So there are things like right here, improved data source in the common data source. This creates this new thing called CDS native, and it gives you that cool date picker. So these are things that are turned on, right? So advanced settings, they're already here. Preview features, these are features if you make a new app, they will be enabled by default. But if you have an old app that you made months ago, you will see these show up like explicit column selection, but it'll be turned off. But preview features, these are features that are going to become production sooner than later. So you need to have your head wrapped around these, because some of them are not, they're trivial, right? So for example, the more reliable concurrent function, not a big deal at all, who cares? But explicit column selection, when that one goes mainstream, if you turn that one on, it changes how collections are built behind the scenes, which for the most part, or not for the most part, it is a performance enhancement. It's a great performance enhancement, but if you've done weird things with your collections, you might have issues. So those are the type of things you want to be testing, looking at on a regular basis. So you should always have your eyes over here and being like, hey, when I make a new app, these preview features are on. My old apps, would my old app benefit from this, right? This SQL one, right? A lot of you use SQL as a data source. I use SQL a lot as a data source. Very cool new connector, solves a lot of the date time problems that we've been having for a long time, but it undoes all the workarounds that we've been putting in place. So turning this on in an old school app could change how your times are handled. And so you need to go and wrap your head around that. So keeping an eye over here, really good. Experimental features, remember, these are ones that they could take away, they could completely rewrite, they could blow away. A lot goes on here. So typically you don't want to use these, but a couple things over here, like you just saw, I use components. They're pretty cool. Web barcode scanners, those are going away. Definitely don't want to use those. Enhanced formula bar. They are in the process of making the formula bar easier to use. You could turn it on and get it today. It might not be ready for you to use all the time today. We've had some struggles with it, but it gives you an idea of where they're headed with things. So it might be good to turn on when, hopefully you get playtime, right? It's Saturday morning, like 4 days before Christmas, and it was my playtime. So I turned it on and played with it in some apps just to continue to get a feel for it. So deprecated features, your friend's rules, they're gone. Don't be using deprecated features, okay? So that was another big one. I don't think anyone actually suggested this one. So next up on my list, very typical for you guys, right? So you got a gallery here, and you go over here to the edit screen, and then you throw in a form, right? Like, hey, I want a form. It's connected to that same list. And so 99 times out of 100, how are you guys doing this? You are going in and setting the items property for this form to be gallery1.selected, right? If we pull this down, you go over here, you're like, hey, my item is gallery1.selected. And so then boom, it is connected. Don't do that. Okay, I know that that's kind of how we've been doing it for a long time, but I get a lot of support calls that start with, hey, all of a sudden my gallery's not showing the wrong thing. I'm like, is it showing the first thing in the list? They're like, oh, it is. How did you know? Because what happens is gallery1.selected can change if somehow your gallery gets reset mid-app. And that could happen by your data source changing. Like there's different scenarios where it happens. We won't get into the scenarios. But what I want you guys to do is you should never do gallery1.selected, right? Write that down. Never do gallery1.selected. What I want you to do is I want you to come here and I want you to say set var record to be this item. Oh, PowerApps, keep up with me. There you go. So that will load, that will create a variable named var record and put the current record in there. And so then we'll just do our normal, navigate over to our edit screen, right? Pretty normal. And so when we get to our edit screen, what I want you to do is now you're going to say, hey, form one, your item property is not that. It is var record. Now look, everything works exactly the same. The key here, though, is if something happens to your gallery, your form will continue to show var record. Var record doesn't change until they click on a new record over there. So you're not holding up, hoping, keeping hope that the gallery didn't change. So 100% of the time, I never do gallery.select anymore. I always set it in a var record and then use var record. I also always name it var record because it makes it easier for me. Every app that I've built and work on, it's hundreds at this point. I wonder if I got into 1,000 yet. Anyway, all of those different apps, they all use the same nomenclature, so I know what it is when I'm interacting with a variable. So consistency, great thing for you. So that's another one. That was one of my personal tips. So that is one. Now, another big problem that I've been running into is that people are like, hey, when I go between these screens or when I press my button, right, it might take 5 or 7 seconds to load because I've done something, right? I have got, I'm doing a bunch of logic. I'm sending 12 emails. I'm patching 200 items, right? You've got a lot going on. But the users, they just get those little dots across the top when they're waiting, right? And they can click on other buttons while they're waiting, which causes bad things to happen in your apps. So what I have done for a long time, and I don't know how I've never shown you guys this, so I apologize, but I have built a methodology that I use. So what we're going to do is we're going to make the thing go slow first. And so to do that, I'm going to add a flow that is really slow, right? I literally made a flow today. I could never remember how to demo this easily, so I made one called My Slow Flow, right? And all it is, it's really just a flow that PowerApps triggers. It has a delay inside the middle, and then it responds back. So we'll just do My Slow Flow, like so. And I put it over here in this button because I don't want it to mess with my other buttons. So I'm going to say copy that out, and now I'm going to delete this button, but the flow is still in my app. That was just a way to get the flow into my app. And so here what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that into the middle of my line. Here, let's just separate these so it makes more sense. Oh, not like that though. Backspace. So do that. All right, grab your little thing. Boop. Pull this down. Okay. And so I'm just going to say set var flow equals that. Okay. And right, and you don't care about this. All I'm trying to do is make it so it takes a long time. So then now if I press this button, right, if we click on Greg, right, it's going to take 5 or 7 seconds. So I'm going to pause. Those were the most boring 4 seconds of my life. And so then now it brings me over here. So all I did was introduce that flow to slow things down. But the problem was the little dots went across the whole time. So what I want you to do now is I want you to go over here. I'm going to insert a media, an image control. I'm just going to show it over here in the middle of the screen. I'm going to make it real big. Whoop. And then I'm going to insert in here a GIF. So I'm going to say add an image file. And way down at the bottom here, oh, hi Richard. I'm going to grab this little spinner GIF that I made. I'll tell you how to make that in just a second. Ooh, fancy. And so then I'm going to say, hey, your visible property is var show spinner. All right, it's mad because the variable doesn't exist. That's fair. So then now on this button that takes a long time to run, the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to, oh my goodness, maybe home, shift enter, not control enter. There we go. I'm going to say set var show spinner to true. And I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go all the way to the end here. Whoop, do that and that. And so then I'm going to do like that. So then now what happens when I hit the button? The little spinner loads. Woo! And I can put like a gray cover over the whole screen so that way they can't click any other buttons. But the idea is it shows my user something's going on and it hopefully keeps them from clicking other things. And if they are clicking things despite of your best efforts, right? Then what you do is you come back over here and you say, hey, I want to do a rectangle. Where is my rectangle? It's all the way at the bottom. I hate the rectangles at the bottom. Microsoft, if you're listening, make the rectangle this one, right? And so then you can do this, and then we're going to set the fill for this. I think you guys have seen me do this for pop-ups before, right? 169, 169, 169.75, like that. And then I'm going to take that, or I'm going to set its visible to be var show spinner as well, like that. And then I'm going to move the spinner on top of it. So I'm going to say reorder, bring the spinner to the front. And so then now when I click on this, now they can't click on anything else on the screen. Now my users can't get themselves in trouble. I have a lot of customer apps where users clicking the button 7 times causes a problem. So my loading spinner with the gray box blocks them all out. So another one of my fun little tricks. Let's see, what else we got in this bag of tricks? We can also talk about, so as I start adding these controls, it reminds me of Brody's tip. And what Brody reminded me of was, a lot of times we start building these apps, we start building really complex apps. It's not unusual to have hundreds and hundreds of controls in your app. And overall, right, less is more, all that thing, blah, blah, blah. But the fact is we end up with apps, really big things. What I have found though, is if you end up with too many too many controls on a single screen, it works fine for the users, but it makes it really hard for you and me to build and edit the app, right? Reloads take a long time. There's a lot of downsides to it. So trying to minimize the number of controls in your app is one thing, but absolutely minimize the number of controls that you have on a screen. And so like this can be the case, I was working with Jim and Keisha the other day. Jim was the one like set me on this. Anyway. And so one of their screens, basically it's one screen, and as you press the different buttons at the top, it's doing other very complex things because they want to kind of make, they were thinking of it just as one experience. And so they probably had 400 controls on the one screen. We're having a lot of problems debugging what was going on and things like that. So what we're in the process now of doing is taking that one screen, splitting it out to 4 or 5 screens. So each kind of major UI shift that the screen used to go through is now on a separate screen. It looks very similar. The buttons are in the nav and all that's in the same place. But instead of having 5 hidden galleries stacked on top of each other, we got 5 screens, each with 1 gallery. So you have to find your balance there, but it is not unusual for Power Apps to get a little slow for us, the makers, when there's too much on one screen. So several of my apps, I've had to backpedal, split it out like that. So Brody reminded me of that one. Rebecca had a great one, and this is what I've been teaching my training class for a long time. But what we will typically do is we have a documentation screen. And so the idea of this documentation screen is I literally just come over here, I put a label, and I leave, notes to future me. Notes to future me. So this might be where I put in things like, hey, I use SharePoint as a data source here because that was the only one available. Or I asked the customer about using Azure Blob Storage and they told me to go fly kites, so don't ever ask them about it again. Or, whatever it is in your app that you did, right? Major things that you want people to know that doesn't make sense to document in line, but they're just overarching notes because it might be you that has to work on this app next week, or you might have to work on it next year. And at some point, you're like me and you've got hundreds of apps under your belt. You're not going to remember why you did some weird thing that you did. So leave future you a note here about why you did the thing you did. And remember, users can only get to screens you give them access to. So like when, if a user runs my app, right, they can get to the welcome screen, they can get to my edit screen and then get back, but they can't get to the documentation screen. So it's even okay to put in notes over there that says, hey, my users are dumb, so I added this drop down, right? I've done that before. Don't tell anybody. Shh. So that's another one from Rebecca. On that same train of thought, my good friend Manuela, who has helped me in several different ways with sessions and other content. One of the things that she reminded me to put in here is comments, right? So remember that you can come in here and do code comments. I know we've covered these before, but right? Loads the spinner. Boop, 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 boop. Loads the record. Oh, put my things in here, right? So I do this type of stuff a lot. And this is exactly the way I do it. I just kind of break it up into sections because I'm not going to exaggerate. One of my apps has a 13-page code block for one button, right? Probably not ideal. Probably not something I'd encourage you to do. But I went and copied it into Word one time just to see how big it was. It was 13 pages of code. And I would just lose my mind trying to troubleshoot that. So I went through and just every little section where it wasn't immediately obvious what it did. I don't comment everything, far from that. But I comment either sections. Hey, I put this in to process this scenario. Or I put this in because the customer did it. That is the type of thing that I will put in here. Another piece of this is as you're looking at your code, I run into this a lot with customers, right? They're like, hey, that slow running flow, we don't need that anymore. I'm like, oh, they do, but they told me not to. So what I'll do is I'll just come in here and I will comment this out like so. All right, remember that's called a inline comment, or sorry, or yeah, whatever. That's an inline comment. So another way to do commenting. But the reason I do this sometimes is because I don't believe them. I think that next week, next month, they're going to ask me to put that code back in. I don't want to rewrite it. I hate writing things twice. So when they have me remove functionality that I've already got working, and I'm like, I don't really believe them, I will just comment it out. It invariably saves me. And in the end, when the app is all done, if they truly are like, all right, we didn't use that, then I can just come in here and delete these out. But I can't tell you how many times that saved my bacon. So just, don't delete code that works. If they say remove it, if you think there's a chance they're going to want it back in. So that was some help from me. Well, she also wanted you to remember, rename these controls, right? And so typically my advice, I'm not sure what her advice on the topic is, but my advice on this topic is I don't rename everything. I got too many controls to rename everything. The only things that I rename are controls that I reference in other functions. So if I want to have, like I'm sending an email, Office 365, send email V4 or whatever, or V2, whatever it is, right? Sending an email, and I'm going to get the text input for the list of email addresses. Then I'll rename that text input to, input email addresses, that type of thing. So I rename any controls that I use in formulas, but those are the only ones that I rename. So that's that one. Couple more little things here. I think there's only really two more I really want. Oh, three more. Okay. So another one of mine, in my apps, I typically will put a label down here in this bottom corner, and I will put in V1. And so the idea here is that if I have an app that I'm doing a lot of work on, that I'm like having to save to see it, like offline apps where I have to run it on my phone to test it really, or SharePoint apps where sometimes the refresh is just a little bit slower than I want. And I'll just increment this, right? So this is V1, and then when I go to publish it, I'll be like V1.1, and then that way, when the user's like, oh, I'm not seeing your change, they'll be like, well, what V did you see? They're like, oh, I see V1. I'm like, well, we're on V1.1, so hit refresh until you see V1.1. That has saved me a lot of pain and suffering as well. And once again, this might be something that's only there through the development phase, but this just helps me make sure that when we're running the actual app, right, we're over here running the real app, I can see the V number here, and I can know what they're doing and know that they're seeing the latest version of the app. So, also I saw, so my buddy Eric, he had a cool little trick here. And what he would do, this was before you had the ability to save comments. So what he would do is he'd be like, all right, well, V1. And so when he was done with V1, he would do this. He'd be like, boom, boom. And then he'd say, okay, oh, I got to press, oh my goodness, press the button, Shane. And so he'd say V1.1. added an icon, right, on 12/21. He'd do that, and then he'd set this text to be V1.1. And so then that way, his little V1 thing reminded him quickly what he had done and what he'd tried to get the user to test as he went through those. I thought that was a neat trick. So Eric didn't chime in on the thread, but I've seen some Eric's code, and I thought that was a good one to share. So good job, Eric. And remember, when you're over here and you're hitting save, you can now do version notes. Notes go here. And so then now when you save this, you have the ability to get notes that way. So, but that wasn't there when I saw Eric's code, so I thought it was a good cool trick. Back over here on a published app, I showed this in a recent video, but I wanted to remind you guys, if you don't like all that crazy Chrome at the top, you can say hide nav var equals true, right? So ampersand hide nav bar equals true. And now the big old purple bar goes across and it's just your app. I thought that's a good one. I used that one a lot, and I forget. Matthew reminded me, not the whole world knew about it, so Matthew got the shout out. It was already on my paper, but he got the shout out because he reminded me weeks before, whatever. Anyway, good job. And then, Addie had one. I think this might be, we're getting real close to the end. So, a lot of times in your code, like right here, it says, welcome Shane Young. Right, and so we just do things like this. We end up saying, oh, dude, user, doo-doo, and then full name, and then that was how we got my name there, right? I'm not a big fan of putting that all over your app, so typically what I will do is on start, I will say set var user equals the user function, and so then now, instead of writing that function all the time, right, I'm lazy, I just do var user, and then I have the full name available just like that. Oh, I got to run on start, right? Right click, run on start. Doop, there it is. But so then there's the full name or the email. Easy, fun stuff. And I think that was all of my quick little tips. So hopefully you guys like this. And I just was taking advantage of the fact that my wife is out holiday shopping. My kids are at her grandparents, but here you can see, you guys want to see Chewy's card real quick. So to our clients, we sent out a nice little happy holidays from everyone at PowerApps 911. There's about 10 of us these days. It's kind of crazy. So, as always, remember, leave me comments below if I can do anything to help or you have any ideas for future videos. Go chime in on that Twitter thread. There's a lot of cool stuff there. There's probably a whole other video set worth of ideas out there. But I think this will be my last video for the year. So I guess I wish all of you happy holidays. I know you're all kind of spread all over around the globe. So whatever traditions your family has, I hope you enjoy them. And I think with all that, I'm just going to say thanks and have a great day. Before you go, be sure to click on the subscribe button over here so that way you'll be notified when new videos come out. If you need any help or you want to work together, whether your problem is big or small, check us out at PowerApps 911. We do it all. I rhymed. Or if you're looking for more formal training offerings, we have those linked up here somewhere. So check them out. Thanks and have a great day.